Thank you for joining us on this hui. Ina mana, ina reo, rangatira mā, tēnā koutou katoa, hei karakia. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te taonga, kia mākina, kina kia uta, kia mātaratara ki tai, he hi, aki ana, tia tākura, he tiu, he huka, he hauhunga. Haumi e, hui e, tai ki e. Nō reira, kia koutou ko tai mai, nau mai hara mai ki tēnei whakatūranga. Ko te wāwata, he kai matauranga tēnei mau, te manu ka kai I te mero, nona te ngahere, te manu ka kai I te matauranga, nona te au, tihei Māori ora. Nō reira, he mihi, ko taupiri te maunga, ko waikato te awa, ko Whenua te roto, no waira airangi te iwi, no rahe hui pōkeka ahau, ko toitu te whenua, Lins ahau I mahi ana, ko Twain toku ingoa. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Well, kia ora everybody, and welcome to our marine geospatial data hui today, Zui wānanga. I'll be facilitating, host, and I'm joined with a couple of colleagues here. Just a few on a shout out, we'll do some intros. Shout out to Brad, shout out to Richard, and to Tania. Kia ora. So what I might do is just hand over to each of you, and we'll go Brad, and then Richard, and then Tania, just sort of an order of our proceedings today. So if you could just give us a short intro and just a little brief overview of what you'll be showing us today, and then we'll come back to me. So over to you, Brad.
Kia ora all. Tēnā tātou katoa, ko Te Kete te Moana, ko Makarewa te awa, ko Huntress te waka, no wa haupai te hau. Ko Brad toko ingoa, he ka mahi ahau mo tutu te whenua, no reira, tēnā koutou katoa. Yeah, welcome. All, my name is Brad. I'm a senior hydrographic surveyor, and I work at Toitu Te Whenua, Land Information New Zealand, the hydrographic team. Today I'm going to be sort of trying to shine a light on the various hydrographic data sets we've got available on this data service, and also how to request some of the data sets which perhaps aren't as visible. So with that, I'll pass over to Richard.
Te Kete Kōrero, ko Richard James toku ingoa, I whānau mai ahau I Cleethorpes in Arawhiti, ko Te Arawhiti o I mahi ana. My name is Richard Jennings. I'm a historian at Te Arawhiti. I'm going to talk to you today about data that we hold related to the Marine and Coastal Area Takutai Moana Act, and a little bit about Te Kete Kōrero at Takutai Moana information of our online GIS book. With that, I'll pass on to Tania.
Kia ora koutou, ko Tania tōku ingoa, ko te here, te whānau, ko Māpuhi, rawa ko te rarawa o ku iwi, ko kuhuia te whanai. Kia ora everyone, my name is Tania Tihira, and I'm just going to be showing you all a little bit of Data Finder and some of the information you can find on there. So that's just Stats NZ's data platform. So yeah, thank you.
Kia ora. Well, thank you everyone. Just to recap on what we'll be looking at today. We'll be looking at different data sets for you to access through and different systems. Tania's going to also show you a couple of different data sets in terms of legal boundaries, and then what I'm going to do is I will show you one way to pull all of that data together into a map of your own using an online tool that you can then overlay your own data if you want, or interrogate other data sets and continue adding more data as well. So if you have any pārtai, feel free to put them in the chat as we go, and we can address them as the presenters go through, or we can have kōrero at the end as well. And if you can just remember, keep your microphone muted just while our presenters are speaking. And then, one other thing, the past 3 wānanga from this year are now ready to put onto the website. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go find the link, and I'll give you prior access, if you like, after this wānanga, so you can actually just go and watch them. But we'll prepare them, put them on YouTube, but they're all ready to go. So I know a couple of whānau have been hanging out, and this have been on me Arawhiti, just getting the captioning nailed. So they'll be coming out to you shortly. So first, we're going to hand over to Brad to kick us off and show us a few of the cool data sets from Toitū to Whenua.
Oh, thanks, John. I'll just share my screen, and hopefully this all works. Go with the entire screen so I can toggle between various things. Share. So you should all see yourselves.
I can see a
that's
big
a
ball.
Thumbs up. That's a vote of confidence. Kāpai. Very good. Right, so you should see the LINS data service. So today I'm just going to walk you through, as I mentioned earlier, the hydrographic data sets that are available online, and about how to request some of the less visible, less known data sets that are actually behind some of that data that we display on the charts. So for those of you who don't aware, a lot of what we display on the data service is what we produce in our nautical charts. So at Toitū Te Whenua Land Information New Zealand, we produce nautical charts for safety and navigation purposes, and we make all those available through the data service here in various formats. So to start with, I guess I'll show you where to find them basically. So you can search using the search bar for anything hydrographic, and you get many hits when it loads. Or you could perhaps go something like category and look at the hydrographic maritime, which sorts things in quite a logical way. Now, a lot of thought was put into how best to display these, and what we typically did was split things out to scale ranges. And I guess I'll try to explain sort of why we've done that in the next few minutes. But I guess the best way to explain it is by sort of turning on the charts. The images of the charts, that is. So these will be quite intuitive for most people. This is the various charts we have at the various scales across the country, from small scale, encompassing the whole sort of area of New Zealand, and the charting area, which is much wider than that, and then going down to the larger scale charts depending on the area. And you'll have larger scale charts for sort of approaches to harbours, and even larger than that if you really want to berth at a harbour. So there's lots of different ones here, and the first few that are available here are the approaches to Auckland. So it shows you sort of one scale that you can turn on there. I've just turned on the approaches to Auckland one there, and if I add another one in there, you'll see another sort of larger scale pop up there. So I guess just looking at that, you can see that there's in the same area there's 2 different scales that sort of represent it. And that's quite crucial to note, because when we come to, I guess, provide all the data behind all these charts, it's good to know that, so you can search for it and understand why we've got it sort of visible in this way. Because if I go back to category and hydrographic maritime, we can then look at the charts in different scale orders. So the way we've sort of divided it up is 4K to 22K, 22K to 90K. 90K to 350K, and 350K to 1.5 mil, and then we've got the very large ones, which are sort of the whole Pacific, the 1.5 mil, 6 mil available there. So if you want to, you can turn on the approaches layers, and you can see it divides things up into points and layers, so points, polygons, and vector layer sort of data sets. And so you can search amongst these for the features that are all available on the charts. What I really should have done is left an example chart image on there, so you can sort of get an appreciation for I guess why some of these are here. So I'll turn on the approaches to Auckland chart here, chart NZ532, and then I'll just go back in and start looking at some of these various feature data sets. So for example here, I'll just see if I can find one that's relevant. Yeah, so there's every charted feature you can think of in here. These are just direct exports from the database, because the way we code things in the database is unique for each feature. So it's quite intuitive and easy to export. I don't know if it's easy to extract them, but it's what we've done. So we've exported these as point line features and put them all over into LDS. So I'm just trying to find a good example. Here's a really good example, the depth contour polyline. So if I zoom in a little bit here and turn on the depth contour polyline, you'll see roughly an overlay of what's charted. So I guess that sort of explains a little bit about how some of these data sets are made. So this is a depth contour polyline if you were so interested, and that's available as a vector data set now. And it's a reflection of what the raster chart image is behind it. So another data set you might be interested in, and I'll find.
Excuse me, Brad.
Yes.
Rupato for you. Could you just explain to the folks difference between raster and vector, just for a second?
It's a very good point. Yeah, sorry, a geospatial person like me likes to go off into these terms. So raster is essentially just.
Oh, hang on.
There we go.
Somehow you were muted. Somehow
it popped up on my other screen. I didn't see it.
Sorry.
So yeah.
If you could just check your sharing back to the data service too.
Yeah, it says it's all good. I'll flip back across. Have your separate tab nicely scrolled away. Yeah, so that's a very good question about the difference between raster and vector. I'm sorry, apologise for that. Us geospatial people like to go off into technical terms. So a raster data set is basically a pixel value associated at every point on the screen. So that's what you're seeing there, little blues and yellows and stuff like that. Very so I guess it's like think of a picture, but it's just a georeference picture. And a vector data set is a sort of point, line, polygon sort of feature, geospatially, so georeferenced onto the screen. So that's, I guess, the key differences between the two. So one's a very as a picture of what's there, and one's an actual attributed layer of what's there. That's the best way I can think to explain it. So yeah, so we've provided you with both on the data service. You can get the background of the proper charts with the title blocks removed, I might add. We've left, so you might note that if I zoom out here, things are in a bit of a funny shape. They're not quite rectangular or square, because when we publish charts, we typically put information panels in those areas. So we've left those out for various reasons, because they display a lot more cleanly on your geographic information system screen when you start bringing things in there. It also looks a lot neater. So I'll just go through some of the other sort of data sets that you can sort of see here. So we've got dredged areas. I don't know what everyone's interested in. Shoreline construction, probably quite a good one. You probably see less of that information on the what do you call it? The small scale charts. You'd see that information more on the. I've just taken it away. How smart of me. Add that back.
Brad, a couple of questions just on the chat in relation to reserves, and I'm not 100% certain if I could recall if the reserves are on the LINS data service, but if not KTPI, I'll show at the end how we can combine data from different places, because I know Doc has got them.
Correct, yeah, so back on again. I'm not muted, that's good. Yeah, correct. So the way we handle things with charting is we take Doc's lead on marine reserves. So whatever they publish, we in turn publish. So they are the authority for that. But we, however, will display them on the charts. Now you're testing my knowledge about whether we put the marine reserves back into here, because there's definite merit of putting them, of leaving them out, and you get them from the Doc website. Now you're testing my knowledge.
Don't worry, mate. I can show you.
I could go on a bit of. I could actually. There might be called something else in here. I'll try a simple search. Marine farms. No, I hazard a guess that we don't publish them in here. Anyhow, that's a very good question. But there's a will, there's a way, and Dwayne will show you. I know exactly where to go as well. And things do line up quite nicely with what we display on the raster charts there as well. So that, I guess that covers off on some of the various data sets, I guess the raster and the vector data sets. Perhaps one of the other things is I'm a hydrographer, I'm quite obsessed with the sounding points. So you can turn on the sounding points and see where all the sounding points are on the in a vector point data set, and bring that into your GIS if that's what you're interested in doing. Yeah, there's a lot of different things available there, and basically every feature that you see on the raster charts or the picture charts, you can bring it in as a GIS layer from the Lens data service, and ultimately export that and import that into your GIS software if you so like. Whether you do that as a web feature service or you do that by directly downloading things like shapefiles. Dwayne, did you want me to go through roughly how to download shapefiles, or will you be going through that later?
We'll skip that part for today, but what I will show at the end is how to use a web service. So even if you would just want to delve into that for a second, because I think that'll be a good thing to aim for.
Yeah, so that's it. That's good. Yeah, good sort of segue into how to get these data sets into your various systems. So as I mentioned earlier, you can export, and you can do that. As you can see here on the screen, you can export different shapes and different file types. So you can do geotiffs here for your rasters, or you can do shape files here for your vectors, which is quite nice. They drag and drop quite easily into programs like QGIS. There's a lot of other different formats here, but what Dwayne, I think you're sort of pointing to is the web feature services. So you can get the different, all the layers have different URLs. You can copy them from here and then put them in your QGIS software, and you can, I guess, see the data live, so you're not having to download new files. So that's the benefit of web feature services. LDS, Lens Data Service, publishes an OGC compliant one, and software packages like ArcGIS and QGIS, they sort of subscribe to that OGC, what was it called, Geospatial Consortium sort of way of doing things with web feature services. So it's in that right format, so those softwares can take it quite seamlessly. So that is an option if you want to access some of these data sets, to grab these layers and link it up in your GIS software. I'll just quickly sort of shoot across to sort of the data behind these charts. Now, soundings don't just end up on charts. They come from data that's been sort of done by previous surveys. And what we've got is a whole lot of data indexes, which perhaps aren't too clear to the public about what might be behind the charts. So I'm just going to go sort of quickly into the different data indexes. They can be looked up.
If I could just add to that, Brad, whānau, this is really, just when you're seeing it now, it won't look very inspiring, but I can tell you what, this is the stuff you really want to pay attention to, because this is what you can request and find that's not currently in the system or the service.
Yeah, it's a bit of a I wouldn't say it's a secret, but yeah, it's probably not as intuitive as going into Lens Data Service and seeing these data sets and downloading them. You're basically looking at indexes for this stuff. So yeah, just pay attention when I get back to where I was originally. Yeah. So here we have a lot of bathymetric indexes available under that category, bathymetric indexes. So probably the one that you'd be most interested in, the one that's probably more detailed and the one I find most interesting because it's where I work, is the bathymetric surface model index. So this is where we have the sort of 3D models of the seabed available, the bathymetric surfaces, and they come from the really rich data sets that we go out and gather as part of our hydrographic surveys when we map the seabed. So I've just got, here's one I prepared earlier. I'm not allowed to prepare for these types of demonstrations, but for this one here, with the fact that the data doesn't sit on the data service, I've kind of had to. So if I go up here to the Bay of Islands and then click on the data index, it sort of gives you a bit more information about this this data source, if you like, here. And if I click on the layer here, it links you through this thing called a bathymetric data dictionary. It's a little bit confusing, but if you get that PDF, and it should open in my browser. I've already downloaded it. This PDF goes to explain how the different data sets, what different data sets are behind this index, but also how to request them. But basically, since you're here rather than reading through that PDF, you tell us the surface name, and you send it off to hydro at lins.gvt.nz, and we'll provide you with the surface behind it. And just so I show you what it looks like, I'll go across to my file storage thing in this directory called webinar prep, and I will drag and drop, show you how easy it is, drag and drop the geotiff of the Bay of Islands bathymetry area. So this is what we've got available, and I'll just update the colours to make them a bit prettier than black than grey scale there. And so this is the data sets that sort of go into the charts. So this is what we call bathymetry, or depths, and it's a full sort of coverage digital elevation model of the seabed. And so from that you can do all sorts of, you can make your own charts, make your own contours at whatever limit you want, whatever scale is relevant to your use case, and you can get that sort of vital input for whatever you're trying to do with the information, and we make that freely available. You just need to request it from us at this stage. We are looking at publishing this data, but that will be a wee while away yet. It's just we have lots of different data sets, and it's just difficult to get them all published consistently when they are that different. Just go back across on that note about bathymetric data. There's lots of different types of bathymetric data. This is just one type, the bathymetric surface model. So we typically get that from the technologies that completely map the seabed. There are technologies that in the past haven't done that complete mapping of the seabed, as well as modern ones. And so we make this data more visible in the bathymetric data index. So a lot of the data sets available in this data index are what we call scan sounding sheets. So in the old days, they used to do surveys, and they used to take soundings and put them on a sheet. We've scanned all those sheets and georeferenced them so they can be dragged and dropped into the software, and we make that data available by publishing through this index. So with this one here, we've sort of got it indexed by the chart number, so chart number 521, and all you need to do is tell us the ID when you request it to the same email address as earlier, and we can go and extract that from you and send it to you. So these ones are quite small in comparison. I think I grabbed 31, 32, but also 20. I'll just drag and drop those into my GIS software just to show you what they look like. So yes to that, and it worked-ish. So this just shows you what some of the scan sounding sheets look like. They are a raster data set, so if you want to get the values out of them, there will need to be some digitizing done. But yeah, it shows you the information that goes into the charts, and the fact that it is available, and it can be a lot more dense than what's in the charts. If you look at the chart for that area, usually what we do when we produce the charts is we downsample a lot of the data, and so if you want that more detail, it's likely that it's there. It's just sitting in these, I guess, these data sources that we have available on the index, and they're freely available. Just contact us, and we'll send them through to you. Happy to provide it. So it's good to see these things used for multiple purposes other than just safety navigation, nautical charts. But it's all there. And a bit of a warning: they do come in lots of different formats, and over the ages we've changed the way we do things. For example, this bottom one here, I put it in here just for interest's sake. The soundings are actually in fathoms, fathoms and feet, to confuse things further when they're under 11 fathoms. So you just got to watch out for that if you're reading into the information on there. A fathom is 6 feet. It's a little bit different or quite a bit different to a metre. So, it's the way we typically display modern data sets. So or meters and decimeters, meters and tenths of a metre. So just a word of warning: you can perhaps think it's deeper than that, or deeper than it actually is by using fathoms. So that's just a brief overview on some of the data sets available. I'll just zoom back to the Bay of Islands because it's a nice picture. I guess, are there any questions about that? I don't know how long you want me to rattle on for about that. I could probably do it all day.
Oh, no, that's good, Brad. If we, I think if we hold off on our questions, we get through our next speaker and Tanya, and then we just check in on the time. But if you do have questions, whānau, just please put them on the chat, because I can grab the speaker, or we can come back to them as well. So kia ora.
Kia ora.
Thanks, Brad.
So
next over to you, Richard. Just unmute, bro. Yep.
Kia ora, Dwayne. Can everyone hear me? We were having problems before. Is this better?
Yep, that's great.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dwayne. Thank you, Brad. And Pena Tato. Kia ora, Dwayne, for inviting me along to this wānanga today. I'm going to talk about some data that Te Kete hold relating to the Marine and Coastal Area Act. I'll try not to go down the rabbit hole on the Act too much, so Dwayne might have to pull me back if I start going down that. I'll also warn you all, I am very over-caffeinated, so if I seem a bit hyperactive, that might be why. I'll try and share my screen. It's been a while since I've used Zoom, but let's have a go. Screen 3. Here we go. Cool. Can everybody see my web browser?
Looking good.
Fantastic. Cool. So this is the online GIS portal which we have, which I was referring to earlier. I'll talk about that a little bit after I've spoken about the data. But initially, when you go to the link which is provided in the document that Dwayne's helpfully done for us, you'll get this welcome screen. There's how-to guides here if you want to know how to use any of the tools in it, but it is very much like most of the ArcGIS Online web apps that you see that regional councils and etc. have. But anyway, let's fire it up. And I'll go full screen on it. Oh no, after I've got rid of the disclaimer. And here we are. So there's lots of data in here, but very little of it is actually Te Kete's data, so to speak. But the main ones that are Te Kete's data, which are useful, are the application areas. So the areas that have been applied for under the Te Takutai Moana Act, divided into the two pathways which the Act provides for. Crown engagement applications. As we can see, there's lots and lots as we get further north, and High Court ones. There are fewer High Court applications. And then we also have on here a slightly different third category of data, which is the Ngāhapu Ngāti Porou Act customary marine title areas, which were done under a slightly different piece of legislation. So yes, we digitize these areas from the maps and descriptions and coordinates that have been provided to us by applicants under the Act. And we are allowed to obviously display this data. It's all publicly available. It has to be to ensure that the Act, for all of its shortcomings, works as well as it can. And obviously, we're more than happy to distribute this to anybody who needs it or is interested in it. We, at the moment, don't have a lovely way of grabbing the data as Brad was demonstrating before. But if you email us through the Kōrero Takutai email address, we're more than happy to share it with you. We are working on a data portal and a new version of this Kōrero Takutai application, which is why I won't talk about it too much, because it's essentially an end-of-life product. We have to replace it. The underlying tool that we used to build it is not being supported anymore. We're finding that some things in it are starting to not work so well. We're hoping to have something new in the new year, or maybe later this year. But yes, that's the main data that we hold, as I say, created from information provided to us. But you can also display it alongside a whole host of other data, including lots of the things that Brad was showing us. I mean, just as an example, when you open up the little, it isn't a Kete, but it looks a little bit like a Kete helpfully, but I think it's just a polygon with a plus sign. You know, we've got things like depth contours, you know, public conservation land. There's heaps of stuff in here, and we keep trying to add to it and keep it all updated. And I should say as well that obviously there are web services available for this data. If you go to show item details in here, then we should get a screen which allows us to get the URL there down the bottom. And if we go back to Takutai, as my caffeinated state is not allowing me to operate my computer properly. There we have it. Unfortunately, the data itself is not nearly as interesting as Brad's, in the sense that all we're doing here is mapping polygons of the application areas. But obviously, it's very important for the administration of the legislation. Yes, I feel like I've run out of things to say about this. Apologies, Dwayne. I was hoping to be able to speak for a little bit longer, but I'll only be able to go down the ACT rabbit hole, so to speak.
No, that's awesome. Thank you, Richard. I just wonder if you could put that email you mentioned just on the chat if it's not already in there. And can you just show us maybe a couple of examples of just zooming in, and maybe just for whānau to be aware of some of the limits of those, the scale capture of those data sets, or at what appropriate level of scale is useful to use that data?
Well, yes. I mean, it varies. Some of the applications are very, very small. Let's see if I can find one. So we've got one here just north of Whanganui-a-Tara here in Porirua, owners of Hungaweka blocks, right up to huge applications, areas such as obviously Ngāi Tahu, Whānui are covering most of Te Pounamu there. Obviously, the data set breaks this all down into different features, and there is also a limited query function included in the application, as well as a more robust filter feature for more advanced users. Is that okay, Bruno? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, good as. Question there for you. Will there be updates to the areas as they go through the High Court process?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, so we're constantly working to try and update the High Court and the Crown engagement application areas. We have to be a bit reactive, unfortunately, because there's a level of bureaucracy, a few layers of bureaucracy which stop us from making changes immediately, but we do try to keep things as up to date as possible. What we are going to do as well, I should speak about this, is that we are, as decisions are made around these applications, and customary marine title areas are awarded, we will produce a layer showing where those areas are, who the holders of them are, very important to make sure that the rights and obligations which flow on from those orders are respected. So yes, no, we will be doing that, and we're hoping as well to add another layer which shows past, present, and future High Court hearings. We just need to find the time and resource to work on it, unfortunately. But yes, so they're what we're hoping to add, and hopefully we'll have those in the new version when it appears.
Cool. Well, thank you, Richard. And folks, if you have any further pātai, just put them on the chat, and we can come back to those at the end as well. Kia ora, Richard. So just going to pass over to Tanya. Oh, and Richard, if you could just put that email, I think.
Yes.
Just in the chat somewhere. Just pass over to Tanya if she's. I know she may. Oh, yeah. Here we go. Over to you.
Kia ora. Yeah, still here. Kia ora, Dwayne. Kia ora, Richard. Right, so I'm just going to very quickly chat about the Stats NZ Geographic Data Service, or we also call it Data Finder sometimes. Right, so can everyone see my screen?
Aye.
Awesome. Right, so here it is. data finder of the Stats NZ geographic boundary viewer and or geographic data service, Arawhiti. And this is where we put a lot of our the information that is available at Stats, such as the SA2s, statistical area 1s and 2s, urban rural, as well as some of the census data that is released as well. And we also have the regional council and territorial authority boundaries. So I'll probably just focus on that and kind of, show you all those ones. Right, so I can see right here that got the TA boundaries, but I'll just go a bit further into them. So there's kind of a couple of different, go regional. So with our boundaries, we kind of generally release them in two types. So we've got a clipped version and a non-clipped version. So I'll add this one to the map and just zoom out. So I guess as you can see here, our non-clipped version, it goes out to that 12 nautical mile limit.
Excuse me, Tanya, could you just maybe dwell on that a little further? What's the difference again between, in terms of legally, between the full boundaries as we're seeing at the moment, and then the, I guess, cartographically clipped one to the coast? Is there any difference other than a visual?
So from my understanding, so with the non-clip one, it goes out to that 12-mile limit, and then with the clipped one, it's just clipped to the coastline. And I need to double check this. I'll just quickly see if it's in the data. It just says clipped to the coastline. I'm trying to remember if it's clipped to the coastline when it's that sort of mean high water line. But I can find it out. But I know it's definitely based on that coastline that one's releases. Is just which one. But yeah, I can get back to people if that is needed. So yeah, that's that one. So as we can see here, we've got the clipped and non-clipped. We have the territorial authority as well. So you've got your TA ones as well, which also have a clipped version to the coastline. Just got to move everyone around. And as with you can see it's quite similar to the lens layout as well. If you just want to download your data, export, and you can come into here and choose the data format you want to download it as, and is pretty much it.
Cool. I have a papa for you. Tanya, which, in terms of the years, some of them are 23, some of them are 22. Are you able, or do you know what is the authoritative one to use? And are there big differences between those two different layers? Like, is it a slight realignment, or do you know? I know this may not be your area, but
no, that's all good. That's a really, really good question. So, the 2023 ones would be the most recent ones, and would probably take into account the representation review changes that happen. So I can't remember exactly how many years, but every few years you have the local government commission, and they do their thing, and then councils can look at changing their boundaries, and one of the big changes that has happened actually is the introduction of the Māori local boards and wards. So yeah, like every kind of few years there are those changes. And the biggest change has been recently with, I think, the 2023 data set. But with that year-on-year change, yeah, probably like if there's been any nudges or splits as well with the geography kind of at the bottom, but those kind of bigger changes wouldn't really happen until after that sort of representation review process.
thanks, Ewa.
So yeah, probably definitely use the most up-to-date, depending on what sort of data you're looking at though, because for the most up-to-date version, yeah, use the 2020, most recent 2023 one.
Cool, thank you, Tanya.
Well, thank you.
So just while you've been sharing there, Tanya, we've had a little competition in our chat of where we're going to head next, and I might even get Brad. Tell you what, I'm going to ask Brad to pick a winner, not a winner, an area that we'll focus on, because I'm after his knowledge on which of these areas in here, Wharikauri, Te Arawhiti, Torere Bay, Te Whakapapa, Pōtiki Kaipara Harbour, or Marlborough Sounds. Which of those are going to have the best charts there, Brad? And we'll head there next. Put you on the spot.
Put me on the spot there. I guess in terms of the most available data, that's probably what we're thinking about here. They're all charted.
Yep. Well, that's good. That means we could do any of them.
You could do any of them. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Interesting features wise, maybe. Interesting seabed features. Is that the next sort of classification?
Oh, look, we got 2 for Marlborough Sounds. Okay, we'll give it a crack.
Marlborough Sounds.
So, kia ora. So I'll just spend the next 10 minutes or so, Whānau, just showing you, okay, awesome data. Now, how do we get our hands on it? What do we do with it? So what I'm going to show you is using, I'm just going to copy paste a link for you into the chat just to see where we're heading. And so the tricky bit is with marine data, of course, is to find the data that is the good data, the best data that's in the marine space. So I'm just going to see if I can share my screen. And if you click on that link in the chat, and unfortunately, once I share my screen, I don't know that I'm going to be able to see the chat. So I might just ask Brad if there's anything comes up there of note, if you could just give me a shout. Can everybody see this map of Aotearoa now? Can you see it on there, Brad? Actually, I'll see if I can drag you off.
Yep. Yeah, Dwayne.
Sweet, cool. And if I bring this Lynn's Data Service page, can you see me dragging that Lynn's Data Service page in front?
No.
Oh, okay, that's fine. I'll do it differently. Actually, it's not going to work like that. Never mind, Kite Pai. In the document that we shared, there are a number of links, and so in the bad old days, we would go through there and we'd. Oops, sorry, Thomas just sent that to you direct. I'll send to everyone here. Oh, hopefully I sent that to everybody. Oh, I might have just sent it to Thomas randomly. That's cray. Okay, here we go. In the chat, there is going to be a link. And in that, if you click on that link in the chat, you'll see the same thing as what we have here with a few layers. So what I'd like to show you is how you can use a simple online tool to bring in data from Lynn's Data Service and from Te Arawhiti and from Stats and from the council and from wherever and from, I'm just not going to keep going and from, but I'm going to show you the basic concept and then you will be able to do this yourself. So I'm just going to stop sharing my screen just for a moment so I can try reshare. See if I can do, window, that's what I want. Yeah, this one. Now, which one are we sharing here? This one, okay. Oh my, that's the wrong screen. Stand by, please, caller. Just having to work in the browser is a bit more tricky than entire screen. That's what I want. This one. Where is it? Okay, can you see the map that I'm moving? Is that the one that's sharing? Awesome. Yep. So you should be able to see the same map, and I'll just press save. And if you just refresh it, if not already, this is, so marine reserves came up earlier. And so I know just from experience that Department of Conservation has got marine reserves. And so I know that they put that data out in public for people like us to access and use. And they use a tool called a GIS system called ArcGIS. And if you use ArcGIS, you can add data directly in. You can also do the same with QGIS, which is desktop GIS tool. Takes a bit of getting used to, but what I'm going to show you here is how I added those in there. So I'm just going to, I've also got conservation land in there. I'm going to just remove that layer and show you how to do this. So I go to arcgis.com. I'll just try this in a new tab, right? arcgis.com. And if you haven't already got an ArcGIS account, you can get one for free. And just if I can sign in here, I'll just sign in with my Google. So the first thing is getting an arcgis.com account. And this means you can do online mapping. And then the next one is I'm going to go up here and I'm just going to click on map. And just and that will come up with an empty map, just like that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the Lynn's Data Service, and I noticed I'm going to be cheeky because someone put tere on there, and that is the name of, it had some meaning to me. So I'm going to see if we've got some, did I spell it right? the search won't quite work. How would I find that on here, Brad? I'm looking for, I'll go into...
You're looking up by a post key there.
I've got the link to get into the maritime data, so I'm going to put that here. So now I can browse if I need to. I think I'm just not quite getting the right name.
So the chart number, we tend to view things in terms of chart numbers. I'm not too sure we've got a chart by that name.
Oh, yeah, that's what I think I'm.
Yep.
So if we go on this one, I could add that to my map and I could hunt it down and find it, but I remember we agreed we were going to do Marlborough Sound, so I'm already gone off on the tangent. So if I come up here and I go Marlborough, would that be one of the sounds, wouldn't it? Display sound. Here's one. Marlborough Sounds.
Yeah, Marlborough Sounds. Yeah, 615 is the smaller scale.
Okay.
6153 is probably the more relevant one, which is just beneath it.
Where's my map gone?
There is an index there on the data service, and there's also an index on a separate website, but yeah, jumping around websites.
For some reason, I think it's just my browser. This map is not displaying, but that's okay because I don't need to see it there. I know this is the Lara one. What I'm doing is I'm looking for the real live feed that's coming from the LINS service, so I don't have to download and store that map on my local drive or anywhere, because I just want to be able to add it to my map. So what I'm going to do here is I've gone signed into arcgis.com, created a new map, and then I've got add layer from a URL. So this will then pop up, and I paste the URL in there. It already knows it's a WMTS, a web map tile service. This is a pretty advanced topic, whānau, if you haven't done this before, but honestly, I tell you, it's worth it. And we'll share this recording as well. Oh, that one didn't work. Okay, some reason. Look here. Okay, I'm just going to go. One of the consequences of having to work in two browsers here. I just got to get that out of Chrome. Oh my. So if I go data.lin, not data finder, data.lins, data.lins.gpt.nz. And now I'm logged in over here. I can't remember my password, but then I'm logged in over there. If I go Marlborough, oops, that's not what I'm thinking either. So now I'm going to go and grab that link out of the Word document, and that's going to take me straight to these data sets. So that's the first link, Marine Charts for Estuaries, and the Word document. And if we come down here, I did a search for sounds, and we come down, and here's the one we wanted. And now the map's going to work too, even better. So we can see it there, but within the LINS data service, I think at the moment I can only add limited data sets. But say I wanted to add it to my own GIS, my own system, and do other things with it for like a story map and other things. And I come in here and I go services. Now, because I'm signed in, this one is going to give me a proper link. So now I've copied it. I'll just put that out of the way. I'll come over here and see where the API token is missing. Now when I paste it, it gives me a proper list, a proper link. And it knows it's a WMS, and this one will work. And we'll say, which one do you want? This one. And here it is in my map. So the next thing we wanted to do is we want reserves. So how do I add reserves? So what I've done now is I've added this layer to our map. I could add others if I want, but reserves is a hot topic. So let's go there first. So I know that Doc have got it on their system, and I can go to the Doc website and I can find it there. But it's even an easier way to do it is go to Browse Layers. So plus Browse Layers, not my content, but all of ArcGIS Online. And I can go Marine Reserve. All of ArcGIS Online. So it's going to have American and others as well. Now what I need to, in Hong Kong, and now what I need to do is just wait and see who is providing this data. Department of Conservation, Doc Marine Reserves. There's one here, and I know from experience that's MPI, even though it doesn't say it, I know that's MPI. There's Canterbury Maps. There's, looks like a private person or something else. So trick here is to identify who you're getting your data from if you're not going to their website to source it. But I'm just doing this real quick. So we can see I've added those reserves now. And it does what it's just done because there's also some on the Chatham Islands. It's over here. And it's just on the other side of the 180-degree line, which causes some issues for mapping software. But now if we zoom in, we have got reserves overlaid. Here's reserve, overlaid from Doc, overlaid on some data from LINS. And now if I come up in here and I go search again, let's say I want to know, so what regional council is this in? I can't remember if it's Nelson City or Blenheim something.
Marlborough District Council, Edwin.
Oh, it's a secret. It's a secret.
Marlborough District Council. That's the secret, isn't it?
Okay. Who's going to put $5 on that one?
All right.
Yeah, you could do this, or you could call Brad.
Just don't trust me. It's all right.
What I'm doing here is I'm looking for. Now I know that Eagle Technology will take Stats NZ data and rehost it for us, and I'm going, they've got it here. I could go to the Stats website in a similar way that I did with the LINS website, but I'm thinking, okay, just for today, I'm gonna cheat, and I'm just gonna borrow this one from Eagle. And I go here and I go, well, actually, they have used the cropped one. So then probably what I'll do is I'll go back to Data Finder over here. Data Finder. I'll look for the layer that Tanya, probably. I'll find stats close enough. That'll tell me to the link. I'll log in. I'll go find that layer. I'll look for the rest for the service. If you remember how we did it on and the, let's go in here and find one. If I go here, console. Whoops, missed. Not close enough. Go over here, services and APIs. I can grab that link. Now that's not going to work because I'm not signed in just yet on here. But then I can add it the same as I did with the LINS data services. It's the same platform. And then if I wanted to add some more data, let's say Te Arawhiti, there's another way I can do it. If I go into that Word document that we shared, and I come down here, and Richard kind of alluded to this one. If we want, let's say, High Court application areas. If I take this link out of that Word document you've got access to from the chat, and I go paste, for many of you who have been to many of our wānanga, you'll know where we're going next, but we're looking, we can either try and add that in a map view if we want, but we want to add this layer, we're reading what it's about, we want this layer into our map that we're building. So now we can take this part away again. We've got that link, and we come over to our map, and we go add from URL, paste that in there, and see what happens. It goes, oh yeah, I know where that's from. We add it to our map, and now we have got data from Doc, LINS, Stats, Te Arawhiti, and you can just keep going. You can think of other stuff. Maybe MPI has some marine surveys, or someone else, Thomas was asking, Kia ora Thomas, about temperature, sea temperature. So if I knew where some sea temperature data was, I could go there and explore and look for a URL, or another cheat. I'm always ask a lazy guy how to do it quickly, and you'll get a good answer. That's me. If I go in here and I go Living Atlas, and so we've done once or twice of this in our earlier hui, and I go in here, ocean temp, something, seawater temperature, so that looks interesting. Sea floor temperature, that looks interesting. If I add that one, because it's pretty and has colours. And hopefully it will appear. There we go. So we have got seafloor temperature. Now this is the question, is I don't know what time this applies to. Of course it won't be real time because we don't have that many sensors, but that's just an example of how you can start compiling your own map. Cost you nothing to do this. You can just use a free account. It's private to you. And then you can also, if you're familiar with the story maps that we've done in the past, you can then embed this map within one of those story maps if you're going to present your case or share with friends and whānau. You can embed that with it. So there we go, whānau. That's what we wanted to show you for today. I think it's been pretty good. Actually, it's not too bad. Because this is the style of our wānanga, is we don't do PowerPoints, we show you it and do it. And sometimes we forget our password, but get to play. So we have time for maybe a couple of questions. If anybody wants to unmute, just go for it. Anything for Brad or Richard from Te Arawhiti, Brad from Tautu Te Whenua. Tania may have had to scoot, but Kete pai. Yep, there we go. And yeah, feel free, just unmute and ask your patai.
Kia ora koutou. Is there data sets on sedimentation? And where will we find them?
Yeah, there are data sets on what's on the seabed. We get them as a matter of our surveys. We tend to focus on, when we're doing our surveys, on anchorages. Sort of for nautical charts, we sort of want to know where the anchors are going to hold so we can advise mariners. But we do have that information. We also have this thing called backscatter information. I could give you a really technical explanation, but basically it's the intensity return from our sounders. So we log all that information, so you get a high intensity. That means it's something like hard, like rock. So low intensity, it's something soft like sand or mud. So we do have that information, sort of georeference and those sort of raster data sets we showed you earlier. So that can be provided, and that's only if we've done a recent hydrographic survey there. Yeah, we do have a good understanding of sedimentation across a lot of the areas where we have charted. So I invite you to get in touch with us if you're interested in that information.